My daughter Andrea had always been a planner. Even as a little girl, she kept binders and color-coded calendars and to-do lists that stretched across multiple pages. She planned her school projects weeks in advance. She planned her wedding down to the placement of every napkin. She planned her children's futures, their summer camps, their college funds, their weddings, all of it mapped out on spreadsheets that she printed and kept in matching folders. So I should not have been surprised when she planned my spare bedroom into her future. I should have seen it coming, but I did not. Not until the day I walked upstairs to get my winter coats and found that my spare bedroom was no longer my spare bedroom. The room had been mine for 30 years. It was the room where my husband had once kept his desk, back when he worked from home 1 day a week. After he died, I turned it into a sewing room. Then my eyes got worse and I stopped sewing. Then it became a storage room. Boxes of photographs, old holiday decorations, the china we never used, my daughter's high school yearbooks, my son's baseball trophies. It was messy and cluttered and entirely mine. I knew where everything was. I did not need it to be beautiful. I needed it to be mine. But on that Tuesday afternoon, I opened the door and found a desk. A large, expensive mahogany desk, the kind you see in corporate offices, the kind with drawers on both sides and a leather blotter on top. There was a fancy office chair behind it, black leather with armrests and wheels. There were filing cabinets against the wall, 3 of them, still in boxes but clearly intended to stay. There was a whiteboard mounted above the desk, already covered in handwriting. Andrea's handwriting. To-do lists. Deadlines. Project names I did not recognize. Quarterly goals. Words future home office written in big block letters at the top. I stood in the doorway for a long time. My winter coats were still in the closet at the far end of the room, but I could not reach them without walking past the desk, past the filing cabinets, past the whiteboard covered in my daughter's plans. I felt something shift in my chest. It was not anger. It was not sadness. It was something colder. Something sharper. A realization that my daughter had taken something of mine without asking. A realization that she had done it not out of malice, but out of assumption. She had assumed the room was hers to take. She had assumed I would not mind. She had assumed that my spare bedroom, like everything else in my life, was really just waiting for her to claim it. I went back downstairs. I made a cup of tea. I sat in my armchair and looked out the window at my garden. The roses were blooming. The goldfinches were fighting over the bird feeder. The world was exactly as it should be, except that upstairs, my spare bedroom had been invaded. I thought about all the other things Andrea had taken over the years. Family recipes she had copied and claimed as her own. Holiday traditions she had changed without discussing them with me. The way she had started hosting Thanksgiving at her house because mine was too small, too old, too inconvenient. She had a way of taking things, not all at once, but slowly, piece by piece, until I looked around and realized that nothing was mine anymore. I thought about my son, David, who lived 3 states away and called every Sunday. He would tell me to stand up for myself. He would tell me to call Andrea and demand an explanation. But David did not understand how these things worked. He was a man. He lived far away. He did not see the way Andrea looked at me, the way she measured my house with her eyes, the way she calculated which rooms she would keep and which she would change. David would say it was just a room. He would say it did not matter. But it did matter. The spare bedroom was the last room in the house that was still completely mine. The rest of the house had been slowly colonized over the years. Andrea's children had left toys in the living room. Andrea's husband had stored his fishing gear in the garage. Andrea herself had filled my refrigerator with her family's leftovers and my kitchen cabinets with her family's snacks. The spare bedroom was the only place she had not touched. Until now. I finished my tea. I washed the cup. I dried it and put it away. Then I went back upstairs. I opened the door again. The desk was still there. The chair. The filing cabinets. The whiteboard. I walked to the closet and got my winter coats. I did not look at the whiteboard. I did not read Andrea's to-do lists. I just grabbed the coats and left. I closed the door behind me. I did not lock it. I did not have a key. It was not my lock. It was not my door anymore, apparently. It was the door to Andrea's future office. She came by that evening. She did not call first. She never called first. She just showed up, usually around dinner time, usually with her children in tow, usually expecting me to feed them. That evening, she came alone. She walked past me and went straight to the kitchen. She opened the refrigerator and helped herself to a can of soda. And she looked at me and smiled. "Did you see it?" she asked. "Did you see the new furniture?" I said I had seen it. She asked what I thought. I asked what she was doing. She said she was setting up her home office. She said her house was too chaotic, too noisy, too full of children and dogs and her husband working from the dining room table. She said she needed a quiet place to work, a place where she could focus, a place that was just for her. She said my spare bedroom was perfect. I asked when she was planning to ask me. She blinked. She said she did not think she needed to ask. She said the room was not being used. She said I had said myself that it was just storage. She said she was doing me a favor by cleaning it out. She said she would even help me go through the boxes, throw away what I did not need, donate what was still good. She said it would be good for me to declutter. She said it with a smile, the same smile she used when she was telling me something she knew I did not want to hear. I looked at my daughter. I thought about all the things she had taken without asking. The jewelry, the china, the photographs, the traditions, the holidays, the refrigerator, the garage, the living room, and now this, the spare bedroom, the last room. I felt that cold, sharp thing in my chest again, but I did not say anything. I just nodded. I told her I would think about it. She smiled and drank her soda and left. I locked the door behind her. The lock turned smoothly. It was one of the few things in the house that she had not replaced. That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling and thought about the desk. The mahogany desk, the leather chair, the filing cabinets, the whiteboard. Andrea had spent money on that furniture. Good money. She had not just borrowed the room. She had invested in it. She had made plans. She had written her quarterly goals on the whiteboard. She had intended to stay. She had intended to make my spare bedroom her permanent workspace, her quiet place, her sanctuary from her chaotic house. And she had not asked me. She had not even mentioned it. She had just moved in, like a tenant who had decided the lease was already signed. I thought about my husband. He would have known what to do. He would have laughed and said it was just a room. Or he would have been angry and said she had no right. I did not know which. He had always been better at these things than me. He had always known when to fight and when to let things go. But he was gone. So I had to decide for myself. I had to decide whether the spare bedroom was worth a confrontation. Whether it was worth the risk of losing my daughter. Whether it was worth the months of awkward phone calls and tense holiday dinners and carefully worded apologies that might or might not be sincere. I fell asleep sometime after 3 a.m. I dreamed about my husband. He was sitting at the desk in the spare bedroom, the old desk, the one he had used for work. He was smiling. He was telling me something, but I could not hear the words. I woke up with tears on my face. The sun was coming through the curtains. The goldfinches were at the feeder. I got up and made coffee. I sat in my armchair and watched the morning. Then I made a decision. I did not call Andrea. I did not text. I did not send an email. I just walked upstairs, opened the door to the spare bedroom, and started moving things. The desk was heavy. I could not lift it by myself, so I took everything off it instead. The leather blotter, the fancy pens, a stack of notebooks Andrea had left in the top drawer. I put them all in a box. I did the same with the filing cabinets. I did the same with the whiteboard. I took down the whiteboard and wiped it clean. I erased every quarterly goal, every deadline, every project name. I erased future home office. I put the whiteboard in the box with the notebooks and the pens and the leather blotter. Then I moved the box to the hallway. I closed the door. I went back downstairs. I called a handyman. His name was Mike. He had fixed my porch steps last summer and my kitchen faucet the summer before. I asked him if he could move a desk. He said he could. I asked him if he could move it to the garage. He said he could do that too. He came over that afternoon. He looked at the desk and whistled. He said it was a nice piece. I said it was not mine. He did not ask whose it was. He just carried it downstairs, piece by piece, and stacked it in the corner of the garage. He did the same with the chair and the filing cabinets. I paid him, he left. I closed the garage door. The desk was out of my house. It was still on my property, but it was not in my spare bedroom. That was enough for now. Andrea came by 2 days later. She did not call first. She never called first. She walked past me and went straight to the kitchen. She opened the refrigerator. She helped herself to a can of soda. Then she went upstairs. I heard her footsteps on the stairs. I heard her open the door to the spare bedroom. I heard the silence. Then I heard her come back down. Her face was pale. Her hands were shaking. She asked where her desk was. I told her it was in the garage. She asked why. I told her because I did not ask for it. She asked what that meant. I told her it meant she should have asked before she moved furniture into my house. She stared at me. Her mouth opened and closed. She looked like a fish out of water. Then she started to cry. She said I was being cruel. She said she was just trying to create a workspace for herself. She said her house was too chaotic. She said she needed a quiet place. She said she thought I would be happy to have her around more. She said she thought I would be glad to see her every day. She said I was pushing her away. She said I did not love her. I listened to all of it. I let her cry. I let her accuse. I let her say everything she had been holding inside. When she was finished, I spoke. I told her that I did love her. I told her that I loved her very much. But I told her that love did not mean giving up my house piece by piece. I told her that the spare bedroom was mine. I told her that I had not been using it, but that did not mean she could take it. I told her that my house was not a storage unit for her furniture. I told her that my home was not an extension of her home. I told her that I needed my own space, my own rooms, my own life. I told her that if she wanted to spend more time with me, she could sit on my couch and drink my tea and talk to me like a daughter, instead of like a tenant who had forgotten to pay rent. Andrea stopped crying. She looked at me. She looked at the floor. She looked at the window. She looked at the goldfinches at the feeder. She asked if she could have her desk back. I told her she could. I told her she could take it home whenever she wanted. I told her I would even help her load it into her car. She nodded. She wiped her face. She walked to the garage. I followed her. She stood in front of her desk for a long time, just looking at it. Then she started to laugh. Not a happy laugh. A tired laugh. A kind of laugh that came after a long cry. She said she did not know where she was going to put it. She said her house really was too chaotic. She said her husband would kill her if she brought home more furniture. She said she had not thought this through. I put my hand on her shoulder. I told her that was the problem. She had not thought it through. She had not thought about me. She had only thought about herself. She had assumed the room was empty. She had assumed I would not care. She had assumed that my spare bedroom was just waiting for her to claim it. But assumptions were not the same as conversations. And conversations were not the same as permission. She nodded. She said she was sorry. I said I knew. We stood in the garage for a while. The sun was setting. The goldfinches had gone to bed. The roses were closing up for the night. Andrea asked if she could leave the desk in the garage for a few more days. I said she could. She asked if she could still come over tomorrow. I said she could. She asked if she could bring the children. I said she could. She hugged me. I hugged her back. And she got in her car and drove away. I closed the garage door. I went inside. I locked the front door. I made a cup of tea. I sat in my armchair and watched the evening turn to night. The next few weeks were strange. Andrea did not come over as often. When she did, she knocked first. She asked before opening the refrigerator. She asked before letting the children run upstairs. She asked before touching things. It was awkward and careful, and nothing like the easy relationship we had before. But it was also respectful. It was the first time in years that she had treated my house like mine. The first time in years that she had asked instead of taken. The desk stayed in the garage for a month. Then Andrea came with her husband, and they loaded it into their truck, and they drove it away. I do not know where they put it. I did not ask. I did not want to know. The spare bedroom was empty again. The boxes of photographs and holiday decorations and old china were still stacked against the wall. The winter coats were still in the closet. It was not beautiful. It was not organized. But it was mine. I thought about painting the room. I thought about turning it into a reading room with a comfortable chair and a lamp and shelves of books. I thought about turning it back into a sewing room, even if my eyes were not what they used to be. I thought about leaving it exactly as it was, messy and cluttered and full of memories. I had time to decide. The room was not going anywhere. It was not Andrea's future office. It was my spare bedroom. It would stay my spare bedroom until I decided otherwise. Months passed. The roses bloomed and faded. The goldfinches came and went. The leaves turned and fell. Andrea and I found a new rhythm. She still came over, but she called first. She still brought the children, but they asked before running upstairs. She still opened my refrigerator, but she asked before taking anything. It was not the same as before. But maybe before had not been as good as I remembered. Maybe before had been me giving and her taking, silently, steadily, until I had nothing left to give. Maybe this new rhythm, careful and awkward and full of questions, was actually healthier. Maybe it was actually love. One afternoon, Andrea came alone. She sat on my couch. I sat across from her. We drank tea. She asked about the spare bedroom. I told her I had not decided what to do with it yet. She asked if I wanted help. I hesitated. She saw my hesitation. She said she would not move anything without asking. She said she would not assume anything. She said she just wanted to help. I looked at her for a long time. Then I said yes. I said she could help. But I said she had to listen to me. I said she had to do what I asked, not what she thought was best. She nodded. She said she understood. We spent the afternoon in the spare bedroom. Andrea carried boxes while I sat on the floor and sorted through them. Photographs of my husband. Photographs of Andrea and David as children. Holiday decorations we had not used in years. The china my grandmother had left me, still wrapped in newspaper, still perfect. Andrea asked questions. She did not make decisions. She asked, "Do you want to keep this? Do you want to throw this away? Do you want to donate this? Do you want to give this to me?" She asked every time. I answered every time. It was slow. It was exhausting. It was exactly what I needed. By the end of the afternoon, the spare bedroom was half empty. The boxes were stacked in the hallway, waiting to be taken to the attic or the donation center or Andrea's car. I was tired. My back hurt. My knees ached. But I was happy. The room was still mine. Decisions were still mine. Andrea had helped without taking over. She had asked without assuming. She had been my daughter instead of my landlord. She hugged me before she left. She said she was sorry again. She said she had not realized how much she had been taking. She said she had been so focused on her own needs that she had forgotten I had needs too. She said she would try to do better. I told her that was all I wanted. Not a perfect daughter. Not a perfect relationship. Just someone who tried. After she left, I walked through the house. The living room was still full of her children's toys. The refrigerator was still full of her family's leftovers. The garage still had a few boxes of her husband's fishing gear. I had not asked her to take those things. I was not ready yet, but I would be someday. For now, I had the spare bedroom. That was enough. That was a start. I went back upstairs. I stood in the doorway of the spare bedroom. The sun was setting. The light came through the window and made the dust motes dance. The boxes were gone. The floor was clear. The walls were bare. The room was empty and full of possibility. It could be anything I wanted. A reading room. A sewing room. A memory room. Or nothing at all. Just an empty room, waiting for me to decide. I closed the door. I went downstairs. I made a cup of tea. I sat in my armchair and watched the goldfinches settle into the maple tree for the night. My daughter thought she could turn my spare bedroom into her future office. She thought one decision, one assumption, one unasked question would give her a place in my house that she had not earned. She was wrong. The spare bedroom was mine. The house was mine. The future was mine. Not because I was selfish. Because I was still here. I was still living. I was still making choices. Those choices were mine to make, not hers, not anyone's. Just mine. The goldfinches tucked their heads under their wings. The roses closed their petals. The sun disappeared behind the hills. I finished my tea and went to bed. The spare bedroom waited. It would wait as long as I needed. It was my spare bedroom. And it always would be.